Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Learn Commerce with Namita. I am Namita Mane. In this session, I am going to discuss with you what is paying banker, what are the statutory protections of a paying banker. Already in my last lecture, I have explained you what is collecting banker, the duties and rights and duties of collecting banker, statutory protections of collecting banker. So you will find the link in the description box. Now without wasting time, we'll start with the today's topic, that is paying banker. Now paying banker is one of the topic in banking laws and practice. So we'll see what is paying banker. Now first we'll try to understand what is check. Now to understand the paying banker or how many banks are involved in check transaction, first you need to understand what do you mean by check. Okay, a check is a negotiable instrument. A check is a negotiable instrument which guarantees the payment of money. Okay, so check is a negotiable instrument. Negotiable instrument means which can be transferred from one person to another person, and instrument means a document. So a check is a instrument which guarantees the payment of money. Okay, a check is a document that orders a bank to pay a specific amount of money from a person's account to the person in whose name the check has been issued. Okay, so it is an order, means it is an order to the bank to pay the specific amount of money to the specific person. Now in check there are three parties involved. Okay, and there are two banks involved in check clearing transaction. So the first is drawer. Okay, so now who is the drawer? Drawer is the person or is the party who draws the check. Okay, who draws the check means who writes the check upon a specific banker. Okay, he is the maker of the check. Drawer is the person who is the maker of the check. That means he is the account holder from whose account the money is going to be withdrawn. Okay, so he is the account holder who draws, who draws the check from money who draws the check for drawing the money from his bank account. Next is drawee. Drawee is the party upon whom the check is drawn. Now check, drawer will be the drawer will be the person, drawee will be always bank. Okay, so drawer is going to draw the check on the bank. So drawee is the person upon whom the check is drawn. So drawee will be always bank. It is the party to whom the drawer gives order to pay the amount to the person named on the check or his order or the bearer. Okay, so drawee is the party on whom the check is drawn, and it is the party, means the drawee is the party on whom the drawer gives order, means the drawer is giving order to the drawee to pay the amount of money to the person named on the check. Okay, now suppose Mr. A, okay, gives the check to B, and this check is of SBI. Clear? So Mr. A is having account in SBI and Mr. A wants to give money to B. So he will issue one check, means A is going to draw the check. On the check he is going to write the name of Mr. B and he will give to B. So indirectly A is giving order to SBI to give the payment to Mr. B. Okay, so A is drawer and SBI is drawee because A is giving means he is drawing the check. Okay, he is the on whom the check is drawn. The check is drawn on SBI Bank. Clear? And next is the payee. Payee is the person to whom the check is paid. Okay, means the payee is the person who will receive the money. So Mr. B is going to receive the money. So Mr. B is called as payee. Mr. B is called as payee. A is drawer. SBI Bank is drawee. Okay, so drawer is the person who draws the check, and drawee is the person on whom the check is drawn, and payee is the person to whom the payment is made. Now in this whole transaction means in the check transaction, there are two banks. Okay, there are two banks involved. Okay, now there are two bankers, or you can call it as two banks involved in the check transaction, which is paying banker and the collecting banker. Okay, so paying banker is the bank which is going to pay the amount to the payee, and collecting banker is the bank who is going to collect the payment from the paying banker on behalf of his customer. So already in my last lectures I have explained you the concept of collecting banker. Today we are going to see what is paying banker and what are the statutory protections of the paying banker. So the collecting banker video link you will find in the description box. Now what is meaning of paying banker? Okay, so the banker, paying banker means the banker on whom the check is drawn, or the banker who is required to pay the check drawn on him by a customer is called as paying banker. Now it is the duty, or it is the obligation of the paying banker by section 31 of the Negotiable Instrument Act, that a paying banker is bound to honor his customer's check. Honor his customer's check means to do the payment of his customer check to the extent of fund available. Now we'll try to understand the paying banker meaning by taking one example. Now just try to understand that paying banker means the banker on whom the check is drawn, and the banker who is required to make the payment of the check drawn on him by the customer is called as paying banker. Now suppose there are two persons, Mr. A and Mr. B. So there is two persons, Mr. A and B. Now A gives a check to B of rupees 10,000. Okay, so A and B are two persons. A gives the check to B of rupees 10,000. Now A is having the account in Bank of Maharashtra. Okay, and B is having the account in SBI. So A is having the check of Bank of Maharashtra. On that check he writes the name of Mr. B, that pay to Mr. B rupees 10,000 rupees, and he gives the check to B. Okay, so now, and B is having the account in SBI. Clear? So when B goes in the bank of SBI to deposit the check, and so SBI will what the SBI will do? SBI is going to collect the money on behalf of his customer from the A's account which is in the Bank of Maharashtra. Okay, so SBI will be called as collecting banker because A has given the check to B of rupees 10,000. So B will go in the SBI bank and deposit the check. So now what is the duty or the role of this SBI bank? To collect the payment of this 1,000 from Mr. A's account, and that account is in the Bank of Maharashtra. So SBI is going to collect the money from Bank of Maharashtra. That's why SBI is called as collecting banker. Okay. Now Bank of Maharashtra, on behalf of his customer, means on behalf of A, Bank of Maharashtra is going to pay this 10,000 rupees to B, whose account is in SBI. Okay, so Bank of Maharashtra is paying the money. That is why Bank of Maharashtra is called as paying banker. Okay, so see, the banker, okay, means Bank of Maharashtra is the banker on whom the check is drawn, means A has drawn the check on Bank of Maharashtra. Okay, or the banker who is required to pay the check. So this Bank of Maharashtra is the bank. So the Bank of Maharashtra is required to make the payment of this 10,000 rupees to B. Okay, so who is required to pay the check drawn on him. So Bank of Maharashtra is called as the paying banker. So I hope you have understood the meaning of paying banker with the example. Now it is the obligation. Obligation means responsibility of the paying banker under section 31. Okay, it is the duty or mandatory duty, compulsory duty of the paying banker, or he means the paying banker is bound, okay, to honor his customer's check. Honor means Bank of Maharashtra's A is the customer of Bank of Maharashtra, so it is the duty, or the Bank of Maharashtra is bound to honor. To honor means to give the payment, to clear the payment or for his customer. Okay, so Bank of Maharashtra is going to clear the payment, means he is going to give the payment to B, whose account is in SBI. Okay, so Bank of Maharashtra, who is doing the payment on behalf of his customer to the other bank, the bank is called as paying banker. Next, now while making the payment, okay, now paying banker, at the time of making the payment, when the paying banker is going to give the payment to the payee, at that time the paying banker must carefully and visually check all the details or on the check. Okay, so precautions in the payment of customer's check, means paying banker is going to pay the money to the collecting banker, okay, on behalf of his customer. So whenever the paying banker is making the payment or making the settlement of the amount, so the paying banker should check the information properly, means these are the precautions, or you can call it as the rights and duties of the paying banker. So first, first precaution the paying banker should see that there should be the signature of the drawer. Okay, when the drawer when the paying banker gets the gets the payment gets the check from the collecting banker, so first thing the paying banker should check the signature of the drawer, is it matching or no. Okay, so the signature of the drawer is necessary. Then the genuineness of the instrument, means the instrument should be in the good faith, it should not be fraud or it should not be neglected by the collecting banker as well as the paying banker. Next is payment not stopped by the account holder. When the paying banker is making the payment to the collecting banker, so the paying banker should check whether the payment, okay, the amount has not been stopped by the main account holder, means from the drawer side. Now next is holder's title on the check is valid. Now the holder of the check, means the title, suppose A has given the check to B. Okay, so whether this title, means whether this Mr. B is proper or is it valid or no. Okay, so the paying banker should verify it. The account is not a dormant account. Okay, now account means if the person's account, okay, when the paying banker is clearing the check or making the payment, he or she, the paying banker, should check whether the customer's account is dormant or no. Dormant means whether it is sleeping or no, means if that customer has not operated the account from so many years, then it becomes the dormant account. So the account should be active account before making the payment to the customer. Next, the account holder is not bankrupt or discreet or insane. The account holder from whose account the paying banker is giving the payment to the other person, that account holder should not be bankrupt. Bankrupt means he should not be insolvent, or he should not be mentally sick. Mentally sick means he should be sound person, he should not be unsound person. Now the account is not under subject to liquidation process. Next is the instrument is properly endorsed. If the check is endorsed, okay, to the third person, then that instrument means the signature of the endorsement should be properly checked by the paying banker. Now check, next precaution the paying banker should do is the check is not drawn beyond the limit fixed by the drawer in respect of the amount. Okay, now suppose the A gives the check to B of 50,000, okay, of 50,000, and but actually in A's account there is only 25,000. So this is the duty of the paying banker. Before making the payment of this 50,000, the paying banker should check the customer's account, means the customer's account, how much money is there. Then he can make the payment. Next is the instrument being presented is crossed or is bearer instrument. So whenever the paying banker is making the payment of check, that time the paying banker should check properly that the check is crossed or whether it is a bearer. Okay, now cross check means the check means the person whose name is written on the check, that person will receive the amount in his account. Okay, the payment will go to that particular person only. Now bearer means the person whoever present the check in the on the counter of the bank. Okay, whoever receives the check means whoever goes in the bank and collects the money is called the bearer. Now the instrument is not stale or post dated. Now stale means what? Stale means the check should not be presented after the expiry of the date, or after the expiry of the check, means check is valid only for 3 months. So if the check is presented for the payment after 3 months, then the payment cannot be released. Okay, now no material alteration is made on the check. Now the paying banker should check whether the check is free from all alteration. Material alteration means overwriting. The signature is overwritten. Okay, so there should be a clear and proper handwriting on the check. There should not be any changes made on the check. So that is called material alteration. Overwriting should not be there on the check. And last, the sufficient balance should be there in the account. So these are the precautions or the duties of the paying banker. He should take care of these precautions as well as the duty before making any payment to the collecting banker. Now after checking all these details, the paying banker can make the payment to its payee. Okay, so once he checks, once all the information has been satisfied, so paying banker is free to make the payment to the payee. Now there are some statutory protections to the paying banker which is given by the law. Okay, now there is a risk involved to the paying banker. Okay, this clearing the payment or giving the money to the collecting banker on behalf of his customer. So it is a risk to the paying banker when making the payment of check, as the banker's duty is, means the paying banker's duty is to pay the amount of check to the right person according to the instructions of his customer. So when it is a duty or it is the obligation of the paying banker to make the payment of the check to the right person, whatever instructions the drawer has given to the banker, the paying banker has to perform according to that. So it involves the risk. If the banker makes the payment to the wrong person, the banker will face the losses. So in that case, the Negotiable Instrument Act provides the paying banker some protections to minimize the losses. Like to suffer by the paying banker, which is to be suffered by the paying banker. Now, of course, the paying banker, whenever he is going to make the payment to the customer, he should satisfy some obligations which are given in the Negotiable Instrument Act. So if we satisfy all the conditions which are given in the Negotiable Instrument Act, then the paying banker will get the protection again from the Negotiable Instrument Act by the court. If he does not take care while making the payment to the customer, then bank will face the loss. If he clear the payment, if he makes the payment to the customer, to the right person, with taking all the dues and care and all the responsibilities, then the under the Negotiable Instrument Act, the paying banker can get the protection by the court. Now first is protection regarding the order check. If the paying banker receive the order check, so under section 85 subsection 1, the paying banker will get the protection. Okay, that in case of an order check, section 85(1) of the Negotiable Instrument Act provides statutory protection to the paying banker as follow. Now where a check payable to the order purport to be endorsed by or on behalf of the payee, the drawee is discharged by the payment in due course. Okay, now payment in due course means when the payment of paying banker is made in a good faith and without any negligence. Okay, so that is called as payment in due course. So in case of order check, there is a statutory protection given to the paying banker if the check is paid to the right person. Okay, now order check means the check where the payment will be given to the person whose name is written on the check. Okay, order check is a check where only the person in whose name the check has been drawn can withdraw in the cash. Okay, so if the order check is been made, if the order check payment has been made to the right person without any negligence, any negligence, and if the payment is made in the good faith, then there is a statutory protection given to the paying banker. Next, the protection in case of bearer check. Now there is a protection given to the paying banker in case of bearer check under section 85 subsection B, subsection 2 of the Negotiable Instrument Act states that whereas a check is originally expressed to be payable to bearer, the drawee is discharged. Now drawee is who? The paying banker. So paying banker is also called as drawee bank. Is discharged by payment in due course to the bearer thereof, notwithstanding any endorsement whether in full or in blank appearing thereon, notwithstanding that any such endorsement purports to restrict or exclude further negotiation. Now in short, I will explain you this section 85 subsection 2. Okay, now bearer check means the payment of the bearer check is made at the counter of the bank. Okay, of the counter of the bank. Now suppose in case, okay, in case if the bearer check is stolen or lost and the banker honors the check without any knowledge, the banker will be discharged from the due course by the payment in due course. That means if the bearer check is presented to the right person, if the right person takes the payment from the counter, then there will be a protection given to the paying banker. Now if the bearer check is stolen or lost, then without the knowledge of the lost or stolen, the banker makes the payment to the bearer check. Then in that case, the banker can get the protection from the Negotiable Instrument Act. Next, protection in case of cross check. A protection in case of cross check means regarding payment of cross check. Now cross check means, suppose this is the check and there are two parallel lines crossed. Okay, that is called cross, means when there are two parallel lines drawn on the check, that is called cross check. Okay, so cross check means whoever's name is written on this check, that person will receive the amount in his bank account. So that is called a cross check. Now there is, regarding the payment of cross check, the paying banker gets the protection under section 128 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Now what does the section 128 says? Now whereas the banker on whom a cross check is drawn has paid the same in due course, the banker paying the check and the drawee thereof in such check has come to the hands of payee shall be entitled respectively to the same right and the place in the position if the amount of the check has been paid to or received by the true owner thereof. Okay, now in short, okay, this section is a technical definition or explanation of protection which is given in case of cross check. Now in simple term, cross check, the paying banker has to make the payment of the cross check as per the instructions of the drawer, and if the payment is made in the good faith without any negligence, the paying banker will receive the protection, will get the protection under Negotiable Instrument Act. Now cross check means suppose A gives the check, okay, to B and this check is crossed. Okay, this check is crossed. So A is giving the order to B to make the payment. A is giving order to the bank, okay, to the SBI bank. Okay, consider his account is in SBI bank and the check is of SBI bank. So A is giving instruction to SBI bank to pay the money to B, okay, in his bank account, in B's bank account, because the check is been crossed. So if the check is crossed, so paying banker's duty is to make the payment to the right person, and if the paying banker makes the payment or gives the payment to the right person, then there is a statutory protection given to the paying banker under section 128 of the Negotiable Instrument Act. Next, in case of protection in case of statutory protection to the paying banker in the case of draft means DD. So there is section 85A of the Negotiable Instrument Act states that, okay, draft drawn by one branch of a bank on another, payable to the order, where any draft that is an order to pay money drawn by one office of a bank upon another office of the same bank for a sum of money payable to order on demand proposed to be endorsed by on behalf of the payee, the bank is discharged by the payment in due course. If the if the demand draft is issued, suppose now this section 85A also is a technical term. In simple language, the protection is given to the paying banker if the paying banker gives the payment to the right banker, then the protection, the paying banker will get the protection. Okay, now once the paying banker makes the payment with care, in a good faith, then without any negligence, then he is eligible to receive the statutory protections, okay, as per the Negotiable Instrument Act. Now there are some cases, in some cases the paying banker can refuse to make the payment. Okay, now what are those cases, or what are the conditions on which the paying banker can refuse to make the payment? Now grounds to refuse the payment, okay, by the paying banker, because paying banker is going to pay the money on behalf of his customer to the collecting banker's customer. So there are some conditions, or there are some grounds, or there are some situation where the paying banker can refuse to make the payment. Now which are those conditions? Now first is in case of insanity of the customer. Insanity of the customer means when the customer is not sound mind. Okay, means when the customer is mental, or he is not physical, means when he is not in the state of writing or talking something. Insanity means whether it is the person is stupid or idiot or mad. Okay, and unsound mind person. So in case of insanity of the customer, the banker, the paying banker is not bound to honor his customer's check. Okay, so if the banker finds that his customer is insane, okay, or is unsound person means where the customer is not able to make the rational judgment or rational decision, or whether that person is mental or mad or stupid, then the paying banker is not bound, means he cannot make the person, or he cannot make the payment to the customer's check. Okay, so if the banker is in case of insanity of the customer, the banker is not bound to honor his customer check when the paying banker receives the notice that the customer has become absolutely insane or unsound person. Okay, unsound mind. So in that case, the paying banker can refuse to make the payment to the customer. Next is when the banker next condition to refuse the payment is when the banker receives a garnishee order. Now garnishee order implies the prohibiting order by the court of law. Okay, so there is the order, the order which the bank gives to the banker to refuse to refuse the payment of the customer. So that is garnishee order. Okay, so the court of law is giving the order to the banker to not to make the payment of that particular customer, then the paying banker can refuse to make the payment. So garnishee order implies a prohibiting order by a court of law attaching the funds in the customer's account. On the receipt of such order, the banker must refuse the payment of the customer's check. Next condition to refuse the payment by the paying banker is when the customer has died. Okay, when the customer is dead, when the customer is no more. So if the banker receives the notice of customer's death, if the banker receives the notice of the customer death, or when the customer is no more, it must be dishonored. Dishonored means the check must be dishonored, means it should be refused to make the payment. Okay, must be dishonor the check presented to it after the notice of the death. Okay, if the banker receives the notice from his relatives, okay, from the customer's relatives, that the customer is no more, the customer is died, then the paying banker can dishonor the check, can refuse to make the payment of that particular check. Next, grounds to refuse the payment of check by the paying banker is when the customer has become insolvent. Okay, insolvent means when the customer is not able to pay his due, or when the customer is not able to pay his creditors. Okay, so in that case the person becomes the insolvent person. So a banker must also refuse the payment of check when its customer has become insolvent. Next condition is when the customer has lost the instrument. Okay, lost the instrument means when the customer has misplaced or lost the check. Then when the customer has lost the check and the customer informs his bank, when the customer inform his bank that he has lost the check, then the bank can stop the payment, or the bank can refuse to make the payment, or the bank can in turn dishonor the check. Okay, if the customer inform his bank that my check has been lost, and the bank will immediately stop the payment of that check. Clear? Next condition is where the instrument means check, okay, has been materially altered. Okay, materially altered means if the on the check there is overwriting, the signature is not matched with the specimen of the signature, or if the check is not properly kept, or it is torn, etc., etc., then the paying banker can refuse to make the payment. So where the instrument has been materially altered. Okay, so when there is a material alteration means when there is overwriting on the instrument, material alteration on the instrument, or where the signature of the drawer does not match with the specimen signature kept by the banker, the paying banker must dishonor such type of the check. If the signature does not match, okay, while when the drawer opens the account with the bank, at that time he has submitted his signature. Okay, and if the signature does not match with the signature he has done on the check, then in that case the banker can dishonor the check. Okay, or if the date is not written properly on the check, in that case also the banker means the paying banker can refuse to make the payment of that particular check. Next is when the account is closed. Okay, when the customer close his saving account, so in that case the paying banker can refuse to make the payment. When the customer gives notice to the banker, okay, when the customer gives the notice to the paying banker for closing his or her account, the banker must not pay the customer's check after that date. After that date means the date of closing of the account. After means the customer closed his account, and after that date the banker cannot make the payment or can refuse to make the payment. So this is all about paying banker, the meaning of paying banker, statutory protections of paying banker, and the condition where the paying banker can refuse to make the payment. I hope you have understood today's lecture. Thank you very much. Please subscribe my YouTube channel, like and share the video, and do not forget to subscribe my YouTube channel. Do not forget to press the bell icon to get the latest notification.